Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, it's wonderful to be back with the Chaver in Arizona. And I want to bring up one more introduction for us before we begin to wade into the deep waters of Pnimiyas HaTorah. Chazal tell us that Rabbi Meir, the Heilige Rabbi Meir, the one who gives us the ability to find lost objects, both physical and spiritual, that he would spend his time looking at people's names. He would look at the names of individuals and he would develop a certain perspective about that person, certain insight into that person based on their name. Now, we know that naming is a very, very delicate and profoundly holy thing. First thing that Adam Arishon does in this world is name things, is attempt to give names to creation, to creatures, to domesticate, to manage the chaos by naming it. And so too, each and every Jewish parent, when they name their children, the Arizal tells us that we're endowed with a particular form of Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration that gives us the capacity to name things. Now, finding a name is not simply an incidental thing. A name is a very, very delicate thing. A name is what gives us a shape of ourselves. When someone calls our name, we respond to our name. A name is the opposite of desolation. Desolation is namelessness, something that doesn't have a particular identity. It's caught up with everything else. There's no specificity. But a name is when something comes out and it's revealed to be something unique. That harofe l'shrui leiv, m'chabesh la'atzvosam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability of restoring our broken hearts, softening our broken hearts. How is that done? Kulam Shemos Yikra, by giving names to each and every person. Every person needs a name. Every person wants to go to a place where everybody knows their name. After 120 years, when we go up to Shemaim, the first things we're going to be asked is, what is our names? Do we remember our names? Now, our names, our spiritual identities, they contain within themselves the secret of what we're meant to carry out. Sometimes we know how, sometimes we don't know how. But the tzaddikim tell us, the Heilige Kamarna Rebbe said, that every person has to find the unity of Hashem within their names throughout our lives to figure out how our names, our Hebrew names, our definition, how it's playing out in our narrative. If I'm Yehuda, where do my qualities of Yehuda come from? If I'm Yosef, where do my midos of Yosef come from? If I have a second name, what's the unity between them? Because our names mean something. The problem is, we don't have Nevi'im anymore. And it used to be, the Gra said, if you want to know what your name means, if you want to know what you're supposed to do in this world, you go to the Navi. Go to the prophet of the time. The prophet will look at your name and they'll tell you what your mission is. They'll tell you exactly what to do. But we don't have prophets anymore, at least in a revealed way. And we don't know our names. We remember our names. We hold on to our names. We don't change our names. That's what keeps us out of exile, by not changing our names, by holding on to the memory that there's a certain meaning at the core of our neshamos. But we don't know necessarily where our lives are meant to go or what our tachlis is. Our Rebbe, Rav Yitzchak Meyer Morgenstern Shlita, says that many, many people come to him asking about what their tachlis is, what's their purpose in this world. What's the mission? How do I direct all of my kochos to a particular destination, to feel that I'm gathering my strength towards something? And the Rebbe Shlita says that it's very difficult to answer anybody about what their tachlis is, because ultimately the only tachlis that's there for a person is the next step in front of them. Our tachlis is perpetually unfolding. And we can't get caught up with figuring out what our names mean, because we don't have prophets. And we know that our name is to be Makadesh Shem Shemayim. But after the prophets left and we forgot about what our names mean, where our names are directing us, so we fell into Motzi Shemra. We fell into a place where we doubted our names, or we didn't value our names. We didn't understand the names of Hashem, and we certainly didn't understand the value of our names as Nishmas Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us by his name. We forget about that, and we fall into a place of Motzi Shemra. We speak Lashon Hara about ourselves and about others, but mostly about ourselves, where we feel that we're unworthy, that our name is nothing, that we're anonymous, that we have no name to show. And that leads to despondency and sadness when a person feels that they don't have a particular mission to reveal in this world. If I don't wake up each morning invigorated with a sense of purpose that I need to bring out the particular form of your glory, Hashem, that no other person can reveal, to fix something that nobody else can fix, it puts a person in a place of a sense of anonymity and sadness. Until the master of the good name came along, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the Baal Shem Tov came to reveal to us that we have good names, that each and every one of us have a neshama, shenasat to be tahirahi, a purified soul that comes from the most supernal places above. Good names, names to live a life by, to uncover paths of spirituality and shlichus, to carry out our particular mission in this world. And to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us by his name, and that we carry the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whether we know our names or not, it doesn't matter. We are a merkava, a chariot to carry out Kvod Shemayim, to reveal the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we say, Yiskadal v'yiskada Shemei Rabba, that his name should be enlarged, his name should be revealed to be great. That's the whole purpose in this world, to reveal the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through our proper names, through our own individual names. Baal Shem Tov came along and said, whatever your name is, doesn't matter, it's good, it's a good name. But names mean something. Names mean something. We're in Sefer Shemos, we're learning about identity, we're learning about our mission. So if you have a tzaddik, you have a particular tzaddik that comes down into the world to reveal something new, we have to spend some time looking at their names, trying to understand what their name might mean in terms of what they brought into the world. For example, Rabbi Meir brought light into the world. And therefore, if we look at his name, we see that it's Meir. It's a name of light. And Chazal say his real name was Rav Nehure Shmei. That his name was exactly what he was, and he was what his name was. When it comes to the Arizal, when it comes to Rav Yitzchak Luria, Schus Yogan Aleinu, the Arizal, who really gives us a full package of Pnimiyas HaTorah, all of the words of Chasidus, and all of the students of the Gra, the Nefesh HaChaim, and all of the Sfardi Mekubalim, and the Ramchal, and the Rav Soloveitchik, and Rav Kook, and all of the different tzaddikim that were inspired by, and the Nesiva Shalom, and all of the different Zramim of Chasidus, they ultimately come from the Arizal. Now, the Arizal comes from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar, like we spoke about, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Arizal begins to be the river that flows forth from Gan Eden, and it extends itself into various offshoots. But it's nearly impossible to find an Orthodox Yid or any Yid that doesn't owe something to the Arizal at this point in history. Even the concept of Tikkun Olam, as misguided as it may have been taken, is ultimately an idea that is rooted fundamentally, at least the terms and conditions, in the Kabbalah of the Arizal. The Arizal was the beginning of Pnimiyas HaTorah being revealed for us in a medicinal way. So then let's look at Rav Yitzchak Luria. The name is Yitzchak. Yitzchak. And so in order to understand something about Pnimiyas HaTorah as I understand it, I think that we have to look very close at the name of the Arizal, which was Yitzchak. Who was Yitzchak? Yitzchak was the son of Avram and the father of Yaakov, the bridge between the Avos. If Avram represented loving kindness and chesed, an extension outwards and flowing forth like water to share with others, to give to others, with hospitality, to be open to others, then Yitzchak Avinu was the midah of gvura, of severity and strength, constriction and containment, darkness, intensity. Yaakov Avinu represents Rachamim, Tiferes, which is the unity between Ahavram and Yitzchak. Avram represents Chesed and loving kindness that flows forth like water. Yitzchak represents Gevura, the fierceness of flames that burn things up. And Yaakov Avinu is the cool air that has the ability of maneuvering its way between the two of them. But we're going to hyper-focus on Yitzchak right now because that's the name that we're focusing on to try and understand a little bit of an insight into what Pnimiyas HaTorah is coming to teach us. When isolated on his own, Yitzchak represents non-movement, containment, constriction. the reduction of expression, a collapsing in on oneself. At the time of the Akedah, we're told that Yitzchak Avinu said to his father Avram, Abba, tie me tighter on the Mizbeach. Yitzchak is the cessation of movement. Yitzchak doesn't move anywhere. Yitzchak doesn't leave Eretz Yisrael. He doesn't put much effort in. In fact, the tzaddikim point out that any effort that Yitzchak did practically put in ultimately didn't have a positive outcome because Yitzchak's midah was not doing anything, rather sitting back and containing himself. Constriction, restriction, folding in on the self, not wanting to be exposed to the outside world, but rather digging down deep into the inner quality of light that existed on the inside. Yitzchak Avinu represents din, it represents severity and harshness, it represents all of the expressions of difficulty that we experience in this world, God forbid, yisurin, constriction, all of those things are symptoms of containment, of constriction and fire. When taken on his own, Yitzchak Avinu is a frightening place because what Gevura does is it destroys, it takes away, it swallows up, it devours. But there's a very, very important teaching that I saw from Rav Moshe Wolfson, Zchus Yogan Aleinu, the Mashgiach of Torah V'das, that he writes that you will never find the parsha in the Torah where Yitzchak is alone. Yitzchak is either with his father Avraham or Yitzchak is with his son Yaakov. Meaning to say that Gevura, severity, constriction, containment, darkness, limitation, is never seen in and of itself. Rather, it has to be understood as part of a larger context. If I'm only looking at the Yitzchak experience, if I'm only looking at din or severity, however it applies in my life in particular or in general, then I might, God forbid, fall into a pocket of despair because I'm being exposed to something that's very difficult, something that feels empty, something that feels hard. It's only when I understand that whatever it is that I'm going through, whatever moment of constriction or darkness that I might be experiencing, is not something that can be seen in and of itself. It's experienced in and of itself. But to look at it and to judge it, it has to be seen within the grander context of what happened before and what's going to happen after, which is the belief in the radical light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the light of Yitzchak represents severity and constriction and containment. But a constriction and a containment, that's not difficult. It's part of a larger story. And here's where I want to dig further down into the Yitzchak quality. That the Ben Ish Chai, Zchus Yogan Aleinu, writes in his introduction to one of his Kabbalah Svarim called Das V'Tfuna, that we have to understand where the Arizal is hinted to in the Torah. Because every big thing that happens throughout the history of Klal Yisrael is hinted to in the Torah. Every small thing that's hinted to is contained within the Torah. But where's Yitzchak and where's the Arizal in the Torah? So the Ben Ish Chai describes the process of Yitzchak Avinu digging the wells, digging one well, and then the Plishtim come along and cover it over, and they take that well from him. Digging another well, and the Plishtim coming over, taking it away from him. And finally going to the next well, where nobody bothered him, and he called it Rechovos HaNahar because he was able to experience calmness. But we see from the Ben Ish Chai that the story of Yitzchak, the story of the Arizal, is found in that quietness of Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu doesn't battle against the Plishtim. When they take his well, he doesn't throw a revolution. He's not disturbed by it. He doesn't even let it bother him. He simply gets up, walks away, and passively and calmly goes on to building the next well. And then the same thing happens again. And he's not bothered, he's not overwhelmed, he simply goes on from a place of equanimity and he opens up another well. The light of Yitzchak Avinu is a light of patience, a light of inner resolve that there's a deep light that rests hidden away in the future that I might not be able to see right now. Based on external vision, Yitzchak Avinu looks harsh, Yitzchak Avinu looks difficult. The fact that the plishtim are coming to cover up my wells, the fact that there's difficulty in my life coming to block my inspiration, coming to block the flow of my life, at first glance, that appears difficult and struggles. But the path of Yitzchak is the path of seeing beyond the difficulty, seeing beyond the constriction, seeing beyond the din, and looking into the innermost quality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light in this world, and realizing that everything is for the good. That's the light of Yitzchak Avinu. That's the light of Yitzchak. Now, the Arizal, we spoke about this before, but the Arizal's Torah is not one that necessarily speaks about unity and light immediately. The Torah of Kabbalah doesn't immediately expose us to feelings of well-being or unity. Adrabah, the opposite is true. When the Arizal opens up his Torah that he's drawing forth from the Zohar HaKadosh, the first thing we see is that there was infinite light. Okay, wonderful. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. And then just as suddenly as we're introduced to Hashem's infinite light, we're suddenly exposed to the removal of that infinite light. Simsum, contraction, din, concealment, darkness. A world that appears to be devoid of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then, the light comes back in. Good news. There's more light coming back in. And then suddenly there's a shattering. There's a breakdown of the vessels. It can't hold the light. Another stage of a trauma. And this is how it goes throughout the writings of the Arizal. It's opening and closing, light and darkness, vessels and expression. And how could it be if the Arizal was coming to teach us about how to find Hashem in this world, how to find Ein Od Milvado, how to live as human beings in a modern world, step by step, with the deep awareness that every action that I do in this world is profoundly meaningful. Every thought, every emotion, and every action that I engage in with my best of intentions is fixing the world. It's joining in a partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's rectifying fallen sparks and elevating them back up to Hashem, believing more and more in Him. How could it be that the tzaddik that came to reveal such a unified light, the light of Pnimius HaTorah, could expose us to such concealed concepts like Simsum and Shviras HaKelim and din and constriction, separation, hiddenness? But if we can learn to understand the quality of Yitzchak Avinu, then we can also understand the quality of the Torah of Rav Yitzchak Luria, which is the Arizal, because they both operate in the same way. Yitzchak Avinu appears to be constriction. He appears to be darkness. He appears to be din and severity. He appears to love Esav. He appears to be attracted to the intensity of things in this world. But at the innermost core, Yitzchak Avinu represents a light that is so bright, a light that is so illuminating, a light of pleasure and joy and goodness that is so big and so deep that it's reserved for the future. It could only be revealed in the future. Yitzchak Avinu holds the biggest secret in the world. And that secret is V'tischak liyom acharon, and I'm going to laugh on the last day. Where does the name Yitzchak come from? The name Yitzchak comes from the language of titzachek, laughter. The laughter of Sarah, the laughter of Avraham. And Yitzchak is named after laughter itself. What is laughter? Where does laughing come from? So there's three general theories of laughter. One is a physiological theory of laughter that was promoted by particular strands of psychoanalytic thought, which is that whenever a person feels an excess of feeling or pent-up emotion, so the body begins to feel claustrophobic because it's holding so much, and there needs to be an act of catharsis. There needs to be a moment of letting go, airing out the tire a little bit. And sometimes that happens by way of tears, and sometimes that happens by way of laughing. And so the physiological theory of laughter is that laughter is just a bodily movement that is there to reduce some of the pent-up energy. The second theory of laughter is a superiority theory. Superiority theory of laughter that was promoted by particular theorists of comedy is that what causes me laughter is when somebody other than myself undergoes a certain fall or failure. Because when I see somebody else failing or falling, or somebody else being exposed in a way that they shouldn't be exposed in a humorous way, some element of themselves, So then I'm laughing. I'm not laughing necessarily because my body needs to have an experience of catharsis. I'm laughing because it's not me that fell. I'm happy that it wasn't me that slipped on the banana peel. I'm happy it wasn't me that was hit by the piano. And that superiority of theory gives shape to all forms of humor that are usually at the expense of another person or another culture or another idea. But for the Torah to speak so much of laughter, and for laughter to be rooted in any of these two crude notions, wouldn't be acceptable. So there's a third theory of laughter that was promoted by a profoundly Jewish philosopher who wasn't necessarily religious, but his name was Henri Bergson, very, very important philosopher. And he opens up a third category of laughter, and this is picked up already far earlier than him in the writings of all of the Mikubalim, in the writings of the Zohar HaKadosh, in the language of Shas, in the language of Hasidus, and in the language of Kabbalah, which is that the true source of laughter is rooted in something referred to as the incongruity theory. That when something sudden and unexpected takes place, when there's a sudden shift or a deviation away from the expected outcome of a narrative, and it suddenly shifts into something totally different that was unexpected, that's going to give birth to laughter. The sudden appearance of something that was so unexpected that I didn't even consider it a possibility within the current given nature of reality, it's what's going to awaken a certain reaction to the incongruity of it all, which expresses itself by way of laughter. So when I find myself in a dark room and suddenly somebody opens a window and light shines forth, that's going to cause laughter because, oh my God, I didn't know there was light there. And this incongruity theory of laughter explains a lot of the things that make us laugh. When a piano falls from the sky and hits somebody, we're not laughing in a cruel way. It's just surprising because why is a piano falling out of the sky? When someone dressed in a tuxedo slips on a banana peel, we're not taking aim at that individual. It's just funny to see someone standing so upright and dressed up as if they're have it together, and then suddenly to remember that nobody has it together. So when the opposite of what we expected is revealed, that's the emergence of laughter. And with this theory of laughter, we can begin to understand Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu externally represents gevura, severity, containment, restriction, imperfection. Like we said, Pnimius HaTorah guards imperfection like the apple of its eye. What appears to be externally dark in the eyes of a world that wants perfection and light and all sorts of glitz and glamour. So the light of Yitzchak appears dark, it appears severe, restriction doesn't feel good. Holding the self back doesn't feel good. But when seen from the innermost light of what's actually taking place when a person is able to set a limit for themselves, we'll come to realize that there's so much more energy being expressed by saying no to something, by overcoming our limitations, by uncovering an inner strength of character that has the ability to live for a purpose that's not yet revealed right now. The light of Gevura is revealed to be a very potent light, one that's perpetually creating, creative and burning with desire towards moreness. That's the light of Yitzchak Avinu. That at the core of the Gevura rests the secret of that within the darkness, we dig down deep and we come to find that it's Hashem also. Yitzchak Avinu reveals the light of Hashem in the Simsum and constriction and concealment in his life that appears to be difficult and contained. Because that laughter that Yitzchak is named for, the Zohar HaKadosh tells us in Parshas Toldos that it's also the laughter of the future. It's the laughter of V'tischak liyom acharon. It's the laughter of Mashiach Tzidkenu when he arrives and suddenly all of the concealment and all of the darkness and all of the difficulty and all of those moments of concealment are suddenly transformed to be revealed for what they always have been, which are moments of encounter with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. And we're going to experience a light of Samcheinu ki yemois anisanu. As the Ramchal says, yemois anisanu, the days of our affliction, the days of subjugation, the days of the darkness of the self, the days of the struggles. The light of Mashiach is going to come back and reveal to us how each and every moment that felt separate from Hashem was deeply bonded with Hashem. And that's going to bring the simcha. That's going to bring the schoik, the laughter of suddenly realizing that, oh my God, all of those things that I thought were separate were in truth close. All of those things that I felt were distant were in truth right in front of me. All of the times where I felt I wasn't with Hashem, I was with Hashem. All of the times I didn't feel loved, I was loved beyond belief. All of the times I felt unworthy, I was more worthy than I could have ever imagined. Every time I felt that my neshama was in the mud, it was just getting prepared to reveal more and more of its crowning jewel. The sudden reversal of all things, the transfiguration of all that appeared to be difficult and suddenly is splintered open with a deep light, that's going to give birth to the laughter of Mashiach Tzidkenu, Batischak Liyom Acharon, the laughter of the last day. Now, this laughter that Yitzchak Avinu carries is exactly what the Arizal is revealing to us. Every time that the Arizal brings us into a concept of concealment or darkness or constriction or a vessel or difficulty or strictness, we have to believe that what Panemius Torah is coming to really teach us is that there's a deeper light of connection that is going to be revealed from within this containment. That darkness never operates in isolation. Darkness is always a preparatory stage to reveal an even deeper light, a Yisrain Ha'or Min HaChoshech. When a person enters into the world of the Arizal and the world of Hasidus and the world of simply being a modern functioning Yid in exile and on our way towards redemption, we need to live with this quality of Yitzchak Avinu, that there is no ounce of darkness that will ever be taken for what it appears to be at first glance. We must always dig down deeper into whatever experiences we're going through and dig to find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu there. How, in what way, we might never know, but we have to laugh our way into the future. Laughter in modern vernacular is referred to as cracking up, which is a surprising statement until we learn what we just discussed. That when there's a wall in front of me that appears immovable, it appears like it's blocking the light, it appears that there's nothing that can penetrate this wall. When cracks begin to appear in the wall, I begin to realize that it's lighter than I thought it was. That in fact there is an ease and a comfort and a goodness that is going to be revealed. And then suddenly the wall of concealment cracks up, it breaks down, it falls apart, and there's a light, the brightness of Yitzchak Avinu that is revealed. This is what the Arizal is teaching us. Every Simsum, every momentary concealment where I don't see the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there to deepen my connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the next moment. Not only that, to come to a place of understanding that the concealment is Hashem himself. Every vessel is there to hold light. Every breakdown is there to rebuild something. Every act of separation between person and their fellow, person and their spouse, person and child, person and themselves is for the sake of an eventual reconnection in a deeper way. Every distancing is for the sake of coming close. Every descent down into a smallness is ultimately for the purpose of rectifying the smallness and re-entering into bigness and greatness. There's no degradation. There's no actual darkness. There's no actual concealment. All concealment, all darkness is just like the darkness of Yitzchak, which is that preliminary dark thing that is in truth very, very deep and light inside of itself. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos, Daf Pei Tes Amud Aleph, that there's going to be a strange conversation in the future when it's time for redemption. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come to Avraham Avinu, the father of Chesed, of loving kindness, and he's going to say, I'd like to redeem your children. Give me the reason to redeem your children. Avraham Avinu is going to say, in whatever way we understand it, Avraham Avinu is going to say, I don't have the answer for you, Hashem. I don't have the answer. I don't know how to validate their redemption. And then he goes to Yaakov Avinu, and Yaakov the same way. I don't know how to validate their redemption. Don't put it on me. And then finally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Yitzchak Avinu, and he says, Banecha chatu, your children have messed up. I want to bring redemption, but they're undeserving. And instead of giving in, Yitzchak says, whoa, my children, Hashem? My children, they're your children also. And if I'm responsible, then you're also going to be responsible. And once there's two parties that are responsible, so maybe we can balance out the burden here. I'll take half and you take half. And when we really look at those halves, we'll come to realize that it's really a lot less negativity than you're actually claiming it is. And at that moment, Hashem is going to agree and say that they're deserving of redemption. And Klal Yisrael is going to wake up and we're going to point to Yitzchak Avinu and say, Ki ata Avinu, you are our father. You are the one who brought about redemption. How could it be? Yitzchak Avinu is severity. Yitzchak Avinu is that darkness. Yitzchak Avinu is containment and constriction and the minutiae and the details of Jewish life. and the particular details and the smallness and the pettiness and all of the things that we engage in on a day-to-day basis. How could it be that that's where redemption is going to come from? But that's exactly what we're saying. The light of Pnimiyas HaTorah is there to teach us that specifically where it appears dark in our lives, specifically where it feels disconnected in our lives, is where we have to dig down deep to uncover the most potent light in the world, to find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find that light of the future laughter within the concealment itself. Maharal says in the 13th chapter of Netzach Yisrael, in explaining this Gemara, that when you have a Beis Din, and all three of those judges are claiming that somebody's guilty, the person's not guilty. Rather, they're going to be judged as free. The reason for that is because when you dig down to the very core of judgment and din, what you come to find is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You come to find that Hashem has been waiting there all along. That's the joke of Yitzchak. The joke of Yitzchak, the schoik of Yitzchak, the laughter of Yitzchak is laughing at the darkness, laughing at the outside nature of darkness in this world and not paying attention to it for even a second, but gazing deeper and deeper until he was blinded from this world, not looking at the outside of this world, only looking towards the innermost point, which was the light of goodness, living with the sense of Gan Eden in the mind. This is the secret of the Kabbalah of the Arizal as well. The Arizal tells the greatest joke of all. He starts off and tells us that there was the infinite light of Hashem, and then Hashem removed that infinite light. That's the joke. The joke is that Hashem removed his infinite light. And the entire story of Kabbalah and the entire story of Pnimiyas HaTorah and the entire story of being a Yid is slowly but surely going through this joke where we feel it's not the punchline yet. We haven't heard the punchline yet. The joke is that there was once infinite light and then Hashem removed it. The punchline of the joke is going to be that Hashem never removed his light. Hashem's been here all along and he's been with us all along. Which is why Schok, Sin, Ches, Vav, Kuf is the Gematria or Ein Sof, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When I realize that Hashem has been here all along, I begin to laugh. And when Mashiach comes, that's when the joke is finally going to be over. When we come to realize that, wait a second, Hashem, you told a joke, you hid yourself. And now I'm coming to understand the punchline of the joke is that you didn't really hide yourself. You were here all along. That's the light of Pnimiyas HaTorah. That's the light of Yitzchak Avinu. That's the laughter of Yitzchak. That when learning Pnimiyas HaTorah, Hasidus, the Arizal, Kabbalah, whatever it is, what it's meant to do is enable us to laugh a little bit, to realize that all of the seriousness and all of the concealment and all of the darkness and all of the details, they're very real, they're very strong, they're very stark. But in the end of the day, there's something that's more real than all of that, and that's the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude. That's the innermost quality of Hashem's light. They say about the Chazon Ish, Schus Yogan Aleinu. The Chazon Ish who writes that Ein Shum Eitzev Ba'olam L'misha Makirs or Ha'oros. There is no sadness whatsoever for somebody in this world if they recognize the source of all of the lights. And the way that Rav Hutner explained that was that if you're looking at the lights themselves, if you're looking at this world and all of its concealment, then it appears that there's fragmentation and good and bad and evil and light. But if you look at the source of the lights, which is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then there's no place for sadness. And it's oiz v'chedva b'makoimo. There's joy and gladness in that place. It doesn't mean that there's not another place within the self that's experiencing sadness, but it does mean that there's an innermost point within the soul that's even more interior than that place of sadness that is still in a state of joy. Chazon Ish also said, somebody asked him once, how is it that you can hear about suffering all day and hear about Yiddish hearts that are suffering in one way or the other all day, and yet you get up as if, you're okay? And the Chazon Ish sat and he said that everything that I hear, all of the pain that I hear goes to a very deep place. But there's an even deeper place where it doesn't go. It's the same principle that we're talking about. The darkness of the world, the concealment of the world, the Simsum of the world, the hiding of God in this world, those are real things. They appear very real. But there's an even deeper place where we know that the truth of the matter, the real reality is that Einoid Milvado, is that all that exists is Hashem. And we can already laugh the future laugh. We can already crack up. We can already begin to laugh. How do we laugh? The tzaddikim of Breslov used to say that laughing is ha, 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 with a ches and an aleph. which stands for Rosh Tevos Chachmas Emuna, the wisdom of Emuna. When we laugh with Emuna, when we remember that Hashem is with us no matter what, we're drawing down the light of the Arizal. We're drawing down the light of the Arizal's Torah, which came to teach us this thing and this thing alone, that Hashem is there even when it appears that he's not there. And that applies to us as well, that I'm with Hashem even when I don't feel that I'm with Hashem. That the world is in Hashem's hands even when it doesn't seem that way sometimes to us. That's the entire secret of Kabbalah, of Pnimiyas HaTorah. When Avimelech came to make a treaty with Yitzchak, the language of the pasuk is Re'ei Ra'inu, for I have truly seen. But there's a doubled language of speech. When Avimelech went to make a treaty with Avraham, it just says Re'ei, I saw. Sort of Simcha Bunim of Pshischa asks a question. Why by Yitzchak is there a double look, and by Avram is there only one glance? And so he says as follows, that when Avimelech came to make a treaty with Avram, the pillar of chesed and expansion and growth and revelation, so it was clear that there would be wealth there. It was clear that that's where the money would be coming from. And so he didn't need to think twice about making that relationship and making that treaty. When it comes to Yitzchak Avinu, at first glance, Yitzchak Avinu appears darkened like the Gevura of nighttime, severity. And at first glance, severity and containment is the opposite of growth. But upon looking twice, upon doing a double take, and looking deeper than the appearances of Yitzchak and looking into the inner interiority at the laughter of Yitzchak, Avimelech realized that no, this containment is in fact going to bring about more and more shefa. Vayizra Yitzchak b'shana hazeh, and he found the Mea Sha'arim, growth, exponential growth. This is the whole secret, to learn to laugh with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'tischak liyom acharon, to learn to laugh before the punchline of the joke, to be aware of the fact that Hashem, you're here with me no matter what, even when the Simsum is still going on, even when I don't know my way around, even when I don't know how to spark that light, I'm with you. And we can begin to laugh. And when we laugh, we begin to open ourselves up. When we open ourselves up, we begin to breathe more deeply. And if we can breathe more deeply, then we leave this world a little bit and we enter into a mindset of Olam Haba. In Chazal, there's an amazing Gemara about the Rebbe who sent his Talmud out to the Shuk to find who's an Olam Haba, who's a Ben Olam Haba in this world, who's someone that lives with a future consciousness. And he went and he saw two comedians, two Badchanim in the marketplace that were bringing joy and happiness to the minds of Yidden. And he said, those are Bnei Olam Haba, that to live with a perspective of laughing, 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 and cracking up the concealment and laughing from a borrowed laugh of the future, of drawing joy into our lives, of seeing light wherever we look, that's going to give us the ability to live in the world of Olam Haba, even when we're in this world, to eat from the Eitz HaChaim. Rabbi Nachman explains very powerfully. He says that the problem in this world and our distance from Hashem in this world, and this is in the 10th teaching of Likutei Moharan Chelik Beis, the darkness of this world is because we don't spend time settling our minds. We don't have a settled mind. We are not mindful. We're not attached to the innermost quality of Emunah, of Chachmas HaEmunah, and we're not able to laugh at the world as a result of that. And the reason that we're not able to settle our minds is because we're sad. There's a sadness in the world. When Hashem is mitzamtzim himself, when Hashem hides himself, there's a sadness in the world. That's what the Baal Shem Tov came to answer up the sadness in the world. And as a result of sadness, a person is like an enslaved individual. You're enslaved, your mind is trapped, and you're unable to settle your mind and develop a new vantage point from which to look at the situation. And as a result of our sadness, we're not able to resettle our minds, and as a result, we're not close to God. And how does one free themselves from sadness, says Rabbi Nachman? They must attach themselves to Simcha. They must attach their mind to a place of Simcha, not that I feel happy, not that I know I'm happy, but I believe in happiness. I believe that there's a place of goodness where Oiz v'chedva v'mekoimo, that Gam ki elech begeit samaves lo yirara ki ati madi. I might be down here in this world that appears like a valley in the shadow of death, but I'm not afraid of anything because I'm with you, Hashem, and I'm laughing. I'm laughing at the world. I'm laughing at all of the concealment. I'm laughing at all of the darkness. Laughing not to belittle it, but laughing in order to crack it up so that the light can shine forth. And Rabbi Nachman says that when you attach your mind to simcha, you regain freedom of your mind. You regain the ability to resettle your mind. You can emancipate yourself from mental slavery and you can free your mind. And he says that this is the secret of the Tanaim that would tell jokes before learning. That Chazal had a klal that there would be a bedicha, a joke, before learning. Why? Because in order to enter into the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in this world, through the Torah, through tefillah, through relationships, through being present as a human being, we have to first and foremost open up our minds. We have to laugh. We have to laugh at the world with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to laugh with the future light of Purim, of V'nahapaychu, that light of simcha that comes about by the reversal of all things, where darkness is suddenly revealed to be the light. And the enemy's plan is suddenly reversed to become the very point of which the story turns towards the light. And in that place of the Bedicha Daise, we create a deep opening of the mind and a unity with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be happy, to laugh with him in this world. Hashem laughs with the Levyasan. We're going to partake of the Suda of the Levyasan. Levyasan, the Suda of the Levyasan, the Gra says, is Sodos HaTorah. The more we learn Panimius HaTorah, the more we learn how to laugh with Hashem in this world, how to laugh away the darkness, how to crack up the darkness, individually, collectively, wherever we find ourselves. The Heilige Rimmenaver, and with this we'll end. The Heilige Rimmenaver says, okay, so if there's always supposed to be a joke, there's always supposed to be a joke before the giving of the Torah, if there's always supposed to be a joke before any shir, so the biggest shir in history was Matan Torah. And where was the joke before Matan Torah? Where was the opening of the Moichin? Where was the entryway into the Schoik of L'Asid Lavo, that light of the Arizal? And he says the joke was Kaf Alem Har Kegigas. That before receiving the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu held the mountain over our heads, and he says, if you don't accept my Torah, you're going to die here. And that's the joke. The joke is that as if there's something that we could do that would cause HaKadosh Baruch Hu to not want to be with us. Hashem wants to be with us even when we don't feel connected to the Torah. The joke is that Hashem says, if you don't accept the Torah, you're not going to be my people. The punchline of the joke is that you're my people even when you don't feel connected to the Torah in a revealed way. If you continue to believe in me, then the ore of the Torah is going to return back to you. So we have to remember the deepest joke in the world that the Arizal came to bring down is that Hashem is with us everywhere, in every moment, in every place, in every feeling, in every situation, in every occurrence. Whatever it is, there's no place that we can't crack open the walls of darkness and allow the light of lights to flood the scene. With this, we understand a little bit about where the Arizal received his teachings. The Arizal was born in Yerushalayim, and then he went down to Mitzrayim to learn by his uncle and to learn by Rav Betzalel Ashkenazi, the Shita Mekubetzes. And on the banks of the Nile River, there was a hut that the Arizal would go to, and he would meditate and be mitboded, learning the Zohar from day until night for the entire week. And Eliyahu Hanavi would come and be Megala Inyanim to him. And that's where the Arizal developed his whole vision before he went to Sfas. Mitzrayim, on the banks of the Nile River, this is where the deepest secrets of Torah are coming out. Erevas Haaretz, the darkness of this world, the Avodah Zarah of Paro. This is where the Arizal Yitzchak is going to be Zocha to his vision. But based on what we discussed, it makes complete sense that the deepest light of the joke of Pnimius HaTorah is that all concealment is ultimately light. And all distortion is ultimately clarity disguised as distortion, waiting for us to daven our way out of it. When we can live with that light, we draw the Arizal and his neshama into the learning of these words. And we learn to be the badchanim to ourselves, to other people, to Hashem. We learn to laugh with the Shekhinah, to realize that things are not as bad as they may seem, and to continue waiting for that day of V'tischak liyom acharon. And how does that day come about? By learning more Pnimius HaTorah, because when we can laugh now, Pnimius HaTorah reveals to us the punchline of the joke, reveals that the Simsum is not real and that Hashem is real. So the more and more we become conscious of that, the more and more we begin to laugh our way into the future. And eventually Mashiach Tzidkenu is going to come and we're going to tell him, we know the punchline already, Be'ezras Hashem.